Hello everyone, welcome to this bonus video. This is what we're calling it because I hadn't planned on filming this one. What happened was I wanted to work in my sketchbook the other day, so I sat down at the desk and then I thought I'm going to film it. If I just film it with no pressure, kind of thinking if I like what I do, then I will share it with you. If I don't, then nobody needs to see it. I don't know, I just felt like that was a really nice way of filming because usually all of my stuff is pre-planned. This way of working, this way of filming actually just freed me up to just work naturally and normally as I would normally do in my sketchbook. I did actually quite like what I came up with. So I'm going to be sharing the process of that today. I think it's going to be interesting to those of you who are really into the Derwent Drawing Pencils. So I've been asked for more process videos for these pencils, and I realise I don't have an awful lot of process using them on my channel. There's a lot of swatching. I do have another video where I'm using them in my sketchbook, but that was a while ago. So I thought I will film this one for you, and you can see how I layer them. You can see how I use them for different marks and so on. So we'll talk through that as I go along. But what I'm doing here at the beginning is I'm just laying down a base of watercolour and gouache. So this part will be over soon. This is the first 2 minutes of the video, just to show you how I create a base to work on top of. Now, sometimes I do use the pencils on their own, but this is actually my favourite way of working with them. There's something about having a wash of watercolour on the page, or gouache. There's a mixture here, I think. Something about that that just creates a nice depth when you go to work on top. So I'm now starting with the coloured pencils, and you can see how I shade with them. So I add a little bit more depth to those little trees and bushes in the background. I think this colour is called spruce green, by the way. It's one of my favourite colours from the new selection of colours they've now released, because these pencils only used to be available in a 24 set, and then a few months ago they released a 72 set, and I did actually decide to treat myself to it. I didn't think I was going to at first because it was quite expensive, but these are pretty much my favourite pencils of all time. They're up there alongside Caran d'Ache Luminance and the Derwent Lightfast. I love a pencil that's a little bit softer. I've noticed this. I've tried all sorts in my time, and things like the Faber-Castell Polychromos or the Holbein Artist coloured pencils, they're really great pencils, but I just find that I work better with something a bit softer. And of all the pencils I own, I would say that Derwent Drawing are the softest pencils, and they are brilliant for layering. So you'll see a lot of layering in this video, and just gradually building up the layers with these pencils is what I like to do. So don't go too heavily all in one go. Just try to build up slowly. This is something I have to tell myself because I can be a bit heavy-handed. I always say this, but I'm kind of heavy-handed with paint and with pencils. And so I have to remind myself that, you know, you can go slowly and you can just build up gradually. I mean, I would say, a slow worker in general. I'm not somebody who rushes through pieces, whether they're in my sketchbook or whether they're finished pieces. But yeah, I can just go in a little bit kind of gung-ho, a little bit heavy-handed. So yeah, I try to just remember, build it up gradually, because you'll get the best results in that way. And you can see that I'm doing that on this hedge here. I'm just gradually building the layers, and I'm using the pencil really, really lightly at certain points. These pencils are fantastic. They will go over the top of paint really, really well. Even if you had thicker watercolour or gouache, they'll work really well over the top. But here I just did a very basic wash, just to give myself a base to work on. I'm actually working from an image I found on mapcrunch.com. Mapcrunch is a brilliant website if you're a little bit stuck, you want something to work on, whether that's buildings or landscapes, because it's like a random street view generator, and you can draw places from all around the world. I have chosen to draw something from the United Kingdom, so you can select your country as well. And I believe this view was in Wales somewhere. But it was a gorgeous winding country lane. Now, I did something very similar to this the other day. I filmed an hour-long video for my channel members here on YouTube and my Patreon members. And this was one where I didn't do a voiceover, but I basically filmed it in real time. I filmed the entire process. So yeah, it was an hour-long process. And I chatted as I went along. So I talked through my decision making, all of my thoughts, and just had a general chat really. It was a lovely, relaxed video to film. And I want to be doing more in that style for Patreon and for my YouTube channel memberships, because I think watching someone's process in real time like that is really valuable. So for this video, which will be publicly available on my channel, I thought I wouldn't speed it up. So I am doing it in real time, but I've put in a lot of edits. You'll see it jump on occasionally. And I might film longer ones of these as well, if it goes down well. This is a little bit experimental, really, because I'm trying to include a bit more of my process on my channel now, because you may remember, if you've been here a while, I used to do a lot of art hauls and swatching and testing new materials. And I think that's a really valuable thing to do in some ways, because I know that I personally, before I invest in new materials, I like to go to other people's channels and see how they're getting on with them, see what they think of them. And I think you get a more accurate idea of the colours as well through a video than you do just looking at swatches online, like digital swatches. So while I do think those types of videos are valuable and they have their place, and I will probably always film them to some extent, maybe not the art hauls so much, but I will share new materials and things like that. I wanted to show you a bit more of like the real me on this channel, because I'm not somebody who just has lots of art supplies just to swatch them or just to buy them. I'm using them. I'm a full-time artist and I'm using things all the time. And now I've kind of had these few years of experimentation. So I would say like it started maybe back in 2020. It was during lockdown, I think. And I decided that I was going to try and experiment with as many different materials as I possibly could to really find out what I enjoyed. Now I'm at the stage where I know what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy. So there have been quite a few things. I actually have an art regrets video, art supplies regrets. So you can find that on my channel if you search for it. If you want to find out the materials that I bought and perhaps didn't like so much or didn't use, and it doesn't mean they're not good materials, it just means that they didn't suit my way of working, because we all have our own individual way of working. We all have the things we like and dislike, and that doesn't mean that something is better than anything else. It just means that things are more suited to us than other things. So yeah, hopefully in this video you can see my process. You can see how I'm layering. Sometimes I'm like in those grasses in the foreground, I've really worked on building up the layers. So I started with just some lines, some horizontal lines going across, and then I added grasses on top, so the more vertical lines. And then right at the end, I went over with more horizontal lines. It kind of gives it a slight messiness that a grassy field would have. It gives it a nice movement. Yeah, I'm always kind of bearing that in mind when I'm working. I'm thinking about how can I achieve what I'm seeing? And so it's about looking for the different textures and looking for the different patterns that you can see in nature. One thing I would like to say about the Derwent Drawing Pencils is that they have a very thick core. So if you're somebody who likes working very finely, want to get some really fine lines, then you would need a much harder pencil. So you would need something like the Faber-Castell Polychromos or the Holbein Artist Pencil, the ones that I mentioned earlier. And sometimes I do want that. Sometimes I really wish that I could get a finer line with these, but I know that that's not going to happen due to the nature of the pencil. I sometimes find myself sharpening them quite a lot, and they will keep their fine point for a very, very limited amount of time before they start looking a little bit blunt again. So that is just something that can sometimes be a little bit frustrating for me about these pencils, but I find that the pros by far outweigh the cons with them. The depth of colour I can achieve, the different layers without them looking too waxy, is something that I just love so much. And I also love their absolutely beautiful colour palette. So when the initial set of 24 pencils came out, they actually were just muted, earthy, very natural shades. Now that they've launched the 72 colour set, they do have a few brighter colours in there as well, which, to be honest, I probably won't use all that often, if at all, for some of them. But it's nice to have them because you never know when you want to add just a little bit more colour. They have also released many, many more of the lovely muted earthy colours that we love from Derwent Drawing. So yeah, I'm very, very happy to have more of these colours. For years I wanted them to release a larger set because it was one of the smallest ranges of pencils ever. I mean, the Luminance I think has over 100 in the range, and Derwent Lightfast probably similar. I don't know how many they have for sure. I tend to buy a lot of my pencils open stock, so I'll buy them individually rather than buying sets of pencils. The Derwent Drawing set, I think, is the only set I have the full set of, the full range. So that shows how much I love them. But yeah, I tend to work with quite a limited colour palette in any one drawing. So for this, I think I chose, how many pencils do I have there? Is it 8? 8 different colours. And I probably ended up using maybe 5 or 6 of them. So I like to keep it quite limited. For me, that just helps it feel cohesive, and yeah, there's not too much going on, so I concentrate more on tone than I do on adding lots of different colours. Totally unrelated to the drawing, but something I want to mention, and something that I discovered recently. You may notice that I hold my pencil or my paintbrush slightly strangely. I've always done this since I was at school. I noticed that I held my pen differently to other pupils and I didn't know why. And it's only recently I found out why. And it's apparently because I'm hypermobile. I didn't know I was hypermobile until I went to a physiotherapist, and I had a bad back, and so they were treating that. And she said to me, "Do you know that you're hypermobile?" And I had no clue. I always knew I was flexible. I seem to be more flexible than other people. And as I say, I'd always held my pen weirdly at school, but I didn't know that was related at all until very recently, the whole pen thing. But yeah, this kind of made sense for so many things in my life, the hypermobility. And it was only recently that I was trying to research a bit more about being hypermobile. And I found that hypermobile people can often hold their pen slightly differently, like in this almost claw-like grip. If it looks like I'm holding my pen weirdly, that will be the reason. I've also discovered why my hands look very red when they're cold, which they often are when I film in the studio in the winter months. That's also probably down to hypermobility. So there we go. That's answered a question for me that I've always had about myself. So we're reaching the end of this video now. And if you're still with me, I'd like you to let me know in the comments section below, which is your favourite range of coloured pencils to work with? And do you have a favourite colour within that range? Because I'm always interested in hearing other people's favourites, even if they're totally different to my own. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't tried coloured pencils before, has it inspired you to give them a go? Because they weren't something I used very much until recently, and I've discovered that my favourite way to use them is actually in mixed media, so with a watercolour or gouache base and then working over the top. I just think this gives, as I said earlier, such a nice depth and a sort of looseness to things as well. I feel like it loosens me up more than if I was just using the coloured pencils on their own. Okay everyone, thank you very much for watching this video. Please check out my Patreon and YouTube channel memberships if you're interested in more each month and to join our community. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, please hype it, leave a comment, all of that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you again soon with another video. I have a vlog style video that I'm busy filming at the moment. And I'm going to show you some of the progress in the craft room as well. So that's pretty exciting. So I will see you again very soon. But until then, stay creative and have a great week. Bye for now.